Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
Spooky Halloween. Happy Halloween, Tom.
Halloween in July, or whenever this episode is going up.
Yeah, something like that. Woo! Hi, everybody.
Haunted Summer. Hello, everyone.
My name is David Bell.
My name is Tom Ryman.
And we just watched the WNUF Live Halloween Special. WNUF.
Tonight is Halloween.
Halloween is Satan's night, the night of the devil.
Reporter Frank Stewart has a special Halloween treat in store for viewers tonight. He'll be leading a group of paranormal experts to the infamous Weber House.
Do you know what happened here in the Weber House?
Some people got killed. Their son went haywire.
Frank Stewart and his team of experts will conduct the first ever live on TV seance.
Evil works in mysterious ways, Frank. It's unpredictable.
Are there any spirits in the house?
It's scary.
Available on the YouTube.
On the YouTubes.
Yes.
Dave.
Okay. Yes, Tom. We have to thank a patron.
Who is the patron we have to thank for this?
J. Allen Grimm. Thank you, J. Allen Grimm. Our Patreon producer who had us watch this movie, which is only an hour and 20. It's an interesting story. But just to finish this off, thank you, J. Allen Grimm, for pointing us to this movie, which is I assume a cult film, a cult horror.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up. It is a 2013 American comedy horror film. Yeah,
it's from the Minnesotas or something. It is so for people who don't know, it's on YouTube. As we said, it is made to look like a 1980s broadcast. They did this by literally pumping the footage through VHS tapes, several, to degrade the quality, to make it a bootleg. The producers and director actually left behind copies in public places to make a little. They're trying to Blair Witch it,
Mm-hmm.
And it is basically, the movie is what looks like a taped off of the television news Halloween special where a local anchor goes to a haunted house and things go wrong. That is the synopsis of it.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah. I feel bad talking about this movie because this is an indie film. It's not like this. It's not so indie that it's it's the people who made it know what they're doing. I think it got it's got plenty of reviews. It's not a struggling film.
It is a well-liked cult horror film.
Yeah. So I don't feel that bad. But usually when we review a movie like this, I want to say oh, here's this little-known movie that people should check out because it's interesting. My problem is I did not find this movie interesting.
Well, it's I have a similar take, but there's a caveat to it. All this, I think this movie...
Oh, yeah, me too.
I think this movie sucks. I think it is neither funny nor scary.
Yes.
However, I do think it's a real accomplishment.
Yes.
Because it does, for all of the money in the world you could have convinced, I would have bet it all on this. This movie really, truly looks like it was taped off of television in 1987. They really...
100%.
They really accomplished that goal. Everything about it. It's mostly... The vast majority of this movie is commercial breaks. And that's my biggest problem with it. It's like
I want to talk about that.
There's only about 30 minutes of actual movie, and it's broken up, no shit, like every 2 minutes by more commercials. And the commercials aren't really nothing's really funny. There's a couple of beats that'll. Let me just get this thought out. Sorry. There's a couple of beats that kind of made me be like, oh, that was kind of funny. But for the most part, it's not funny. It's not scary. But boy, is it authentic. They really. I have a lot of respect and admiration for what they were able to accomplish. Like the commercials all look and feel great. The running theme through all the commercials, like the satanic panic, the drug scare, at odds with like all the terrible movies like that are supposedly corrupting the youth that they're playing on television, and just the goofy banter between the two anchors on the news broadcast before the Halloween special starts. Like it's all really perfectly executed, and as far as the way it looks, the tone of it, it's real accomplishment in terms of that. Like this gave me flashbacks of several times. Like can't say enough positive things about the filmmaking aspect of this. It's really
100%.
impressive. Yeah.
I would define this as an amazing hoax. And that's the thing, is that this is, I would say, a missed opportunity to me. I was
very much
my
so.
feeling.
Very much so.
My feeling is not this is bad. My feeling is I'm disappointed in what they did, because I think what happened is the people who made it, like you said, knew perfectly how to recreate this era of taped off the television. Because you're right, with the exception of like, there's a couple narrator voices that I thought felt
too
a little
modern.
off.
Too modern.
Yes,
yeah. Or
too modern.
they're too
other than that,
too obviously goofy.
Yes.
Yep.
But other than that, this is a fucking straight up recreation of daytime fucking TV. I guess it's night TV.
Yeah, this is primetime TV, but yeah, but it's local,
like shitty local TV. Yeah. And that is an accomplishment. The problem is they forgot to make a movie. They were too committed to the bit.
Yeah.
So like, imagine a found footage movie that's 18 hours long. Like, this is how the footage would be found. It's like, yeah, no, I get that, but you have to make a movie. This movie is more like vibes. It's.
Very
I would
much
say
so.
it's something you put in the background of a party, but it's also not long enough. I would say it's about 60% ads. And they were so obsessed.
It might even be more than that. Like it's clear they were really. The commercials is what really tickled these filmmakers.
Yes,
they loved
they were
making the
obsessed
commercials.
with it.
Yeah.
Yes, and they couldn't, because they were so obsessed with that. They were blind to what they were doing. It felt like, where they were. They got so obsessed where they just kept being like, and look at this one we made. Look at this one. And it's like, at some point, you have to make a movie in all of this.
It is no joke. Especially towards the end of the film, it is no joke. Every 2 minutes, they stop. They stop the movie.
They stop like the climax
for another 2 or 3 minutes of commercials.
Right.
Like, guys.
And I would argue there's a thematic thread, but they don't use the ads in any way that
not in a meaningful
really
way.
Works.
They like reinforce some of the themes through the ads, and it's more about just like kind of what the mood of America was at that time. Like there was the satanic panic, the fear over Halloween, the idea of poisoned or tampered Halloween candy, the drug stuff, all the anti-drug ads that we see. Like it's very effectively recreating that time period. So it's like all those themes feed into the climax of the movie, which is that a crazed group of concerned parents end up murdering a bunch of people for doing this Halloween special.
And here's the thing. It's so authentic that I actually found myself starting to skip the ads. I actually found myself getting bored looking at other things because I just felt like I was watching a boring news program at times. And that's the thing. 24 minutes in, we don't even meet the main character, because that's the other thing. Because it's trying to be authentic, the big problem is they didn't structure it correctly. 20 minutes into the movie, we're on those other two anchors who bookend it, but they don't really have anything to do with the plot. The plot involves a news anchor, a specific guy,
Frank.
Frank. Yeah, and we don't really meet him. 20 minutes is the first act. This is an 80-minute movie. So at 20 minutes in, you need to feel like you're watching, like it's going somewhere. they don't go I don't think they get into the haunted house until like 40 minutes in.
Oh, they don't actually get inside the house, because we finally cut to Frank, and it's about 20 minutes of him standing around outside doing crowd work with all these people who've shown up, and then just interminably cutting to ads.
Right.
So he doesn't finally get it. We don't finally get inside the haunted house that is the main story piece of this film until it's halfway over.
Right, and see, the thing, they're mimicking almost like Geraldo, right, with the fucking Al Capone's vault, where you spend an hour bleeding up to nothing. The problem is that's not a good movie, and so that's what's happening here. Except the nothing,
right.
I would argue, was not good enough.
They forgot that the Geraldo thing was a huge embarrassing failure.
Exactly. But I do think they have a lot of good ideas.
Oh yeah,
and I want to dig into more of that in a bit. But I really need to hammer this home, because so basically they finally get into a house with a priest and two psychics. The psychic's cat is killed, and they leave. Their equipment is busted. A lot of the stuff keeps happening over the ads. They skip the events. So we keep seeing aftermath.
We'll also hear a sound that doesn't connect with what happened. They'll be in the next room. They'll hear a bang, a door shut, and they'll be like, oh, what was that? And then they walk back into the front room, and the psychic's entire recording equipment has been smashed and spread across the room.
Right.
It keeps happening like that, you know?
Yeah, and
then they keep cutting to commercial. They'll be like, oh, we got to cut to commercial. And it's just what they keep doing every time something spooky happens. It's like they fell into that trope of saying cut to commercial when something's going wrong. And they just kept doing it. They do it 10 times.
Yeah, during the climax where they're like, something's happening outside the store. We got to get through. Let's cut to commercial.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Stop. It reminds me of the new Godzilla movie where every time Godzilla showed up, they'd cut and leave the scene.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, it's his name. That's his name. Is the movie is his name. Why do you keep cutting away?
That's who I bought a ticket to see.
It.
Yeah.
Right. And what they were trying to go for, again, is a hoax, is realism. Because when you watch this movie, if you were to think it was real, which, no one, I guess if you found the VHS, it would be impressive, right?
Yeah.
It would be.
Oh, yeah.
But because it's not, we know it's not real. There's a story I'm always reminded of where when I worked at a movie theater, one of the ushers started telling a story about his friend who got pulled over by a cop and stole the cop's car accidentally. And while I was listening to the story, I just went, Good Will Hunting. And he was like, what? And he was like, that's the story he tells in Good Will Hunting. It's not a real story. Your friend told you a fake story. And I completely took the steam out of this because the person kept telling the story after I realized it was a fake story. And it's one of those stories that when you realize it's made up, it's not a fun or impressive story. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Where it's like a personal, fun little quirky story.
Right.
But then when you find out it's fake, it's not. It's like, oh, okay,
right,
well, that's
because
just you're telling a.
The fun thing about it was that it was unbelievable.
Yes.
It's like, can you believe this happened? Well, no, it didn't. This is a story I made up.
Yeah. So now you're just making up a story that didn't. And it was very funny at the time because he finished the story. He's like, I guess it's not very impressive now. But that's kind of how this feels, which is that ultimately, spoilers, there's no ghosts in this. It's just like the Jesus anti-Halloween people with an axe.
Yeah.
And it was the most obvious thing because they set them up more than anybody. And they just kill them all with an axe. And it's in the last 5 minutes and nothing else really happens. And it's people kill people all the time. If this was a real news story, that would be huge. That would be huge.
Yeah.
But you just made it up. So couldn't you have dreamed a little bigger? Couldn't you have had ghosts or something actually happen? Because ultimately it's not enough for what it's asking us to go through.
I think I love this idea and the execution is incredible. So I want these filmmakers, I wish they would do this again, but with a better story.
Yes. So it's not just that. So, like, imagine, if you will, because I want to talk about the character of Frank.
Sure.
I looked up the actor's name. Paul Fahrenkampf, who plays the reporter. Fahrenkampf. There's this. The part that I liked the most about it was around him.
Yeah.
Because he plays this like he's trying to be Geraldo. That's basically the vibe. And he is so frustrated when no one does what he wants them to do. And that's the main source of humor for me. When he's first interviewing the crowd.
Right.
And the crowd is all these like dipshit mouth breathers who are just like, one of them makes like a Ghostbusters joke and he's like, oh yeah, that's great. Like he's so incredibly unimpressed and angry with just these fucking normal fucking shits that he has to interview and act nice to. And it's a very funny character because you can feel his disdain for humanity. And you can feel that he's trying to manufacture something, and he's frustrated that it's not working out. Right?
Right. Yeah. It's the funniest thing about it is he has this grand idea for a Halloween special, and nothing is coming together. Nobody's doing what he expected them to do. There's an eventual reveal that the priest isn't even a priest; he's an actor that he hired to do it.
One of my favorite lines was the psychic is like, I can sense vibes. It'll take a minute. And he just goes, it'll take a minute.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, man, it'll take a minute. It's just so funny that he's just like, come on, we need this to happen right now.
Yeah.
Or I'm trying to make TV here.
They're doing the seance and they're trying to have people call in to ask questions and they're all just cranks on the phone pretty much. And then so finally he's like, all right, well, I'll get us started. Do any of the spirits that you're communicating with right now have any like stock tips or lottery picks?
Yeah.
And they're like, Frank, this is not funny. He's like, oh, I'm not saying it's funny. I'm just trying.
He's just trying to get something
he's trying to get
happen.
Anything going, yeah.
And so I actually think he's a strong character. Had they started with Frank, because again, this movie starts with 20 minutes of two characters we never care about.
And they ultimately they don't matter. They bookend the movie, but it's weird to start the movie with a 20-minute bookend. Because that's all it ends up being.
I hate to like give notes, but have Frank be one of the co-anchors. Start with Frank, get to know Frank in the first 20 minutes. Also, get him once you hit 20 minutes, you better be in that fucking haunted house. Because they keep teasing it. So, but give us Frank earlier so we get a sense of who he is, right? And he can say like, yeah, later I'm doing this live special. I'll be going from the studio to that, you know? Mm-hmm. So that's number one. Like, if you have a protagonist, we need to know the protagonist pretty early. You're not Hitchcock, right? We're not making Psycho.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, you need the protagonist there in like the first few minutes, especially with a short movie like this.
Yeah.
So again, they're going for realism, but it's like, no, make a movie. Yeah, like it was smart. They start fast forwarding through the ads, and at a certain point, I was like, just fast forward through all of them.
Well, that presents an idea, right? Like that we haven't really talked about yet. So that presents a sort of further sort of idea of the narrative is that we're actually like somebody's watching this tape.
Yes.
Right.
The implication is that the last footage
it has to be the murderers. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're just watching the tape that they made. So the actual killings themselves were not broadcast live. It's just they recorded them onto this videotape. That seems to be the implication.
Right. That's fine.
Yeah, it's fine, but it's just that's not like enough for me. Like I do wish this would have aired. Even though, as I said, they nail the execution so well on pulling off an authentic 90 minutes of television from 40 years ago. This has captured the feel and look of it perfectly. I wish they would have aired more on the side of making a movie than recreating reality.
They do it too well. Like, imagine doing a movie about someone doing a video game live stream where they get murdered, and you make 90% of it just them playing a game.
Right, and then all that it is somebody walks in at the end and shoots them. That's basically what this is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's just not a good movie.
No.
It's a neat hoax. It's a neat accomplishment. But as a movie, it's just really fucking boring, and it felt like kind of a waste of time. So like again, so imagine having.
I wouldn't call it boring, but I was tired of the commercial breaks by the end of it for sure.
Yeah, I was straight up bored. We were saying before this, we did a review of Atanajat, the Fast Runner, which is almost a 3-hour movie. This felt longer than that movie to me.
Yeah, me too.
It for an hour 20, you really feel that hour 20, and it's because there's a reason why we don't have commercials anymore. They're like, commercials suck. Like there's
a reason commercials aren't a voluntary part of films. Yeah. You don't include them unless you have to, and it's because it breaks up the momentum of your story.
Right. So here's some other notes that I was thinking about with this movie. So one of the things in the first 20 to 30 minutes of this movie, they also introduce a bunch of things. They introduce a cop. They introduce a dentist. They introduce characters. When I was first watching it and I thought it was going to go somewhere, I was like, what a great way to introduce your characters that I assume will show up later. Why wouldn't that cop show up later? Like, that seems like a good opportunity, right? You have the cop do a PSA. You have the cop show up as a character. It's a good way to introduce characters. They don't do that. And that really frustrated me.
It's just that it's also because they spend so much time on these news segments that introduce these characters and on these commercials, and all of it doesn't matter. Like, none of it serves the actual story. Guy. Yeah, they show that commercial about 3 or 4 times too. Right,
and it's like, I don't know. I feel like this guy needs to show up in some way or be a part of the movie in some way. Here's my other pitch for them: is had they made this supernatural, they could have done some really fun shit. What if the commercials get more and more weird?
Yeah, the commercials start getting weird, like Cheddar Goblin weird.
Yeah, what if it starts becoming a cursed video? Because the thing that bothers me, I think, about this movie more than anything is they're not really using the format
not at all
to tell a story.
Not at all. I think they thought as far as pulling it off and then really didn't do anything interesting with it.
Right. So like an old VHS tape that you're watching that has the special on it, why not mess with the fact that it's like the commercials serve no narrative purpose other than to show this like vibe of the time, like you said, the Satanic Panic and the drug stuff, the cop being like, don't bite into a apple that has an AIDS needle in it, basically. Like they're showing that paranoia, and I guess that does relate to the idea that these people at the end are like the product of that, you know?
Yeah.
But that's not enough for me.
No, me either.
It would have been better if the commercials started becoming part of the tape, or the tape started warping or doing something in a meta way that
we start to see it's taped over something weird, like just the I that would have been my instinct my first instinct would have been make the commercials build to start out just being authentic and then steadily getting weirder and building toward and serving the story instead of just being a random thing that we cut away to. No shit, like every 2 minutes, and it doesn't have anything to do with anything.
Right. It really doesn't. Again, the ads are well done,
guys.
They're very authentic. They're very well done. I get why they were proud of them.
And like I said, many of them are thematically aligned, but it's just like when you keep interrupting the story with them to just give us like another anti-drug PSA, it's like, I get it. I don't...
Yes.
Like, I'm like, you keep chopping the legs of the story out so you can go to these commercials, and it's just resetting my brain and the pace of the film every time you do it. It's so frustrating.
Right. And the film is, for that reason, like, you can literally start this movie 30 minutes in and not lose anything.
Nope.
And that's a big problem. You shouldn't make a movie where you can skip to 30 minutes.
You shouldn't make a movie where nearly half of it is unnecessary to the point where you don't... Yeah.
Yeah. So here's continuing my pitch. Because, again, this was really frustrating to me because here's the thing about making a movie like this. It's cheap. Well, it is and it isn't. It's cheap in ways that found footage is.
This took a lot of effort.
Yes, there's a big production. There's, they're shooting on location. I'm sure they're using stock footage too, obviously.
Of course.
But they're really nailing the tone. But they are shooting fake commercials, and they're shooting at real locations. It's still not that this isn't not, this is an indie fucking movie.
Of course.
But it's not dirt cheap either. But it does save you equipment because you're using 90s equipment essentially, or you just have to, you can shoot on digital and then downgrade it. So right away, again, great opportunity. So how do you make a movie like this? I would say you lean into supernatural and kind of everything we're talking about, which is what if the idea is, because the plot is that this guy went on a Ouija board and killed his family, right? Mm-hmm. That's what they set up. And again, never pays off, never matters. Because they're
point
setting
of
up
fact,
this
it
other
doesn't
thing.
have anything to do with anything. Yeah, it's about murderers that are, spun up by the satanic panic.
Right. And again, they're the most obvious people in the movie.
Yeah.
They're the people they I wrote it down. They brought them early and I'm well, these people are definitely the killers. But I was maybe they'll do something clever, but they don't. That's just it. What if you didn't do the red herring and actually focused on the idea of someone who, and maybe instead of a Ouija board, they watched something or they saw something or they read, Evil Dead style, read from a book, some sort of component that then bewitched them in some way and they became a murderer, right? Yeah. And then what if you start it at the 30, you start with Frank, you get him in the house around 20 minutes because it's an 80-minute film, and you have him actually find that artifact, and then what the movie is you the viewer being bewitched, right? That's how you justify things like the ads starting to go nuts.
That's a cool idea, Dave.
Yeah. And so you watching the characters also get bewitched and that happening, and then you slowly realize the ads are changing and everything's getting more demonic and weird in the ads and in the video. That's how you do a movie like this, because then you're using the entire fucking format.
Yeah.
It's frustrating.
It is. Because there's an immense amount of talent here.
It is, and I guess I didn't really
talented creativity.
Yeah, I didn't really read the reviews at all for this, so I'm kind of curious what it was. I have a it's again, it's I feel bad because you're saying, this is very, very talented, very creative. Where it lacks is the screenplay more than anything. And that's why it's so frustrating, where it's I wish I could take this same group and hand them a script and be make it like this. But I guess what I don't understand is I guess I do understand the really positive reviews, people who are really into it. And I think it's because people are really, really impressed by what they did. Mm-hmm. I think about a movie like Blair Witch, and I'm wondering with Blair Witch, do you think this is true? Is Blair Witch a boring movie now?
I haven't rewatched it since 1999, so I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, neither have I. Because the thing, when I first saw Blair Witch, no one told me it was fake. So I was one of the few people who watched Blair Witch not knowing it was fake. And when you watch that movie, not knowing it was fake, it's haunting. Haunting movie. It doesn't show much. That's the whole point, right?
Yeah. It shows nothing, point of fact.
Yeah, but I think knowing it's fake and watching the movie, it would be a slow burn in a way that's satisfying, right? Because it also satisfies the story, that the idea of them standing in the corner and then that's the ending. Mm-hmm. And then the performances are really, really good, So it's a slow burn in a way that leaned on the idea that it was authentic when it first came out, but I think it still holds up because it was made with care,
It's a story, and the format serves the story. It was it was a story first.
I think we talked about this a little with the Outwaters, which is when you're making found footage. First of all, it was a story first. Yeah, that's a big deal. But also, when you're making found footage, you don't want them to feel like characters, but you don't want them to be boring, right? So you want them to be like charismatic in a real way.
Yeah.
You want them to tell jokes and be silly in a way where you feel like you're watching somebody that you like, someone on the TikToks or something like that. And I think Blair Witch did that with both. They're not that charismatic, honestly, but like their drama and like the things between them, it feels like reality
they're
TV.
real. They're natural. Like it feels like you're watching real people.
Yeah, and what they're saying is still like interesting. You know, they're still they walk that line. The Outwaters I thought did too, which is like they made these people like you kind of like them. And The Outwaters is a real slow burn. That's another movie that asks a lot of people, right? And so like this movie has that. Frank. I think Frank is a fun character. I liked watching him.
Yeah, me too.
The news anchors I liked watching to a extent.
For a different reason. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's doing a great job, but like I would say like the news anchors I just like 10 minutes tops. Because again, we need our main character. And you need them to be in there soon. So like they were fun, but yeah, they're more fun because they just felt like authentic cheesy ass news hosts.
Yeah.
And again, everybody's doing a good job. I like that the psychics are just pissed that their stuff gets broken.
Yeah.
I like that feeling of that they're probably scam artists. Like you get that vibe. They're all doing a good job, but it really is a slow burn. They're really making that deal with the audience right away, right? Mm-hmm. Which is stick with us.
This is building to something. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's why it's so frustrating that they don't hold up their end.
Right. Like what it builds to like lands, it goes over like a lead balloon. It's such like a wet fart. Like
who is even the killer? I
don't know. Somebody in a flannel shirt. I'm sure if I go back
with an axe.
I'm sure if we go back and watch it more closely, knowing the ending, we can probably figure out who it is. Like I imagine you probably see the killer in there maybe, but you definitely see the lady who's the head of the church group. So
yeah, you definitely see her. Again, as obvious as it can get, I guess.
Yeah, it's just it happens so quickly and it's so underwhelming and it's not scary.
This is one where I've noticed, like I'm looking at reviews and I noticed that it's a lot of like critics kind of who probably saw it when it first premiered. Like there's always that premiere bias or like that, you know, like you're in the room with the people who made it bias sometimes. But like it really is, it can't be understated how authentic it looks. Mm-hmm. And I think that there was a lot of people excuse me, who was really like blown away by that.
Smitten with that. And I am too. Like honestly, like I didn't like this movie and I think this movie ultimately is a failure, but I can't say that it's bad or that it sucks because it's a real impressive accomplishment in terms of just the technical stuff, like recreating this broadcast. It's pretty great.
And any one of the commercial breaks are delightful on their own.
Sure.
The first time they do commercials, I was like, this is great. You know, they do like...
Right, I was like, what a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah, that like orange juice ad.
Yeah,
where,
which is like it's slightly demented, so I thought they were all going to be that way.
Right. But even that, like, you feel it. Like, I got to appreciate, like, I do want to break down some of these ads because they really felt 90s. The orange juice one is like about like a 3-2-1 blast-off theme, right? With orange juice, and it's like you can kind of feel like we recently watched. What did we watch? Double Team.
Yeah.
And that it's a '90s pilot.
Yeah.
Or an '80s pilot.
1991 is when it aired.
Yeah. And that had ads, and you forget like ads have always been out of their mind, but you forget the uniqueness of certain eras, you know. And they really like nailed it. They do the anti-drug one where they're playing spin the bottle with different drugs.
They were all like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a great idea for a 90s ad. Spinning the bottle until you finally hit death. Like, that's perfect. The local ads were perfect. They're not Cheddar Goblin. They're making them as straight and, like, authentic as they possibly can well, sort of leaning into the fact that they're silly as hell. But they did they tried to do some of the national ads. That was probably the harder things, you know?
Yeah, when they were trying to do the TV shows, that's where you see the seams.
Yes. Because it's like, oh, you don't have the budget for
right. You don't have the budget
TV
to like
show.
recreate what a TV show actually looks like. It looks like you're just filming people on a camcorder in a living room. The film quality looks like you recorded it off of VHS, but it's not shot or blocked like a TV show. It's not shot on film like a TV show. So those parts are the parts where it's the weakest, where they actually show, like, even though like the commercial for the one cop show, Chicago Lightning, that's a great title.
Oh yeah.
Even though like I enjoyed them in spirit, that's where the illusion starts to slip, is with those. For sure.
Yeah, I think they could have leaned on stock footage a little more.
Maybe.
You know, spent a little more money on that. Because stock footage, you can get stock footage that looks, you know.
Or just not do the footage from the show. Just do like, because this, you used to get.
Just do the logo.
Just
like
do the
tonight
logo.
At 9.
Yeah, tonight at 9. Like, Grizzard finds a hot dog in his hamper, but he lives alone, so who put it there? Tune into Chicago Lightning to find out. Like I saw so many commercials that were like that, where it was just the logo and it would summarize what the episode was, because they were like locally produced. They were produced by the local station. So like the local Fox affiliate would be like, tonight on The Simpsons, Bart takes a fucking shit. And, you know, but it's not an official commercial. They don't have
Perfect
any footage.
impression. Yeah.
But so you could have just done that, because they ran ads like that all the time. I don't know.
Exactly. No. Yeah, for sure. So, I don't know. That would have been probably better, because that was definitely when you see the seams in it.
Yeah.
But otherwise, the local ads and some of the more national looking or seeming ads, definitely.
The Zoo Books one I thought looked good, and that's because that was mostly stock footage.
Yeah.
It was like a subscription service
right.
where it's like a mail-in videos. Like, you can't go to the zoo all the time, but you can watch these. You know, they were like we would get the National Geographic tapes that were like that.
Again, they were authentic to like, oh, I even remember this product that doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
But again, they were so authentic that halfway through, I was like fidgeting with my phone. I was like looking away.
Because they even repeat them too. And you know, they have the unseen person who's watching this video fast forward through it sometimes, but like,
right, but not enough.
When they started repeating ads, I was like, guys, really?
Right. The ads needed to escalate. And that's why I kept thinking like these should get demonic or something. But instead, they're just a flat line. And that's a problem. You know, movies need to go somewhere. There's arcs. Things like characters need arcs. And we didn't really get that here either.
No.
So it's not a movie. It just isn't. It's so focused on trying to feel real that it forgets to be entertaining. And I think the reviews are people who are like, it feels so real. But then when you go to audience reviews, it's just people who are like, I was fucking bored. Because that's how it goes. You know, audiences, again, I remember the 90s. So at a certain point, I was like, I'm not impressed by the ads because they're ads. Mm-hmm. And so, like, they became annoying the way ads became
Once
annoying.
the novelty wears off, they are just commercials.
Yeah.
Because they do not contribute to the story. So it is just an interruption for 2 to 3 minutes of non sequiturs. That's a commercial break.
It is. And if they used it in a good way, maybe. Like if the cutting to ad was a running gag and then they used it in a good way near the end or something. You know, a weird comparison is like Mars Attacks, where they're like, there's a tour going through there. And then they use that as a punchline, right? Like if they set it up a little bit, I would say they should have had half the ad breaks, even if that wasn't realistic, you know? Because, again, it felt like they watched actual TV and they were like, well, we have to have it this way because that's what it really was. And it's like, no one cares about what it really was.
No. These are way more often than standard ad breaks.
Yeah. So that's even worse. Yeah, it really does seem like they got stuck on, we made so many ads and we're really proud of them. And we want to show you them all. And it was a case of like, you have to kill your babies. You should have planned this out. It felt like they didn't have enough of a movie, you know, because again, the first 20 minutes are nothing. So take that away and it's a 60-minute short. And then you take the ads away, like you said, there's only about a half hour of actual
movie,
story.
Yeah.
and you can fucking feel it. So it's hard because I feel bad being like giving so many notes of like, but like my ultimate feeling of this was like, what a good idea that you didn't follow through.
Yeah, like as a piece of art, this is really impressive, I think.
Yes.
As a movie, as like a story, this is a failure.
Yeah, and I really couldn't recommend it. I
can recommend it. Like, give it a watch. Watch the first 20 minutes of it, and if you're into it, keep watching.
Right, and if you're not, shut it off for sure. I mean,
because it clearly seems like just them recreating this vibe was enough for a lot of people who saw this movie. So I don't want to deny that from people, because, like I said, I think this is a really, really impressive piece of creativity. So I think it deserves to be seen for that reason.
Yeah, I guess it's just, to me, it never amounts to anything.
It doesn't,
ultimately.
Unfortunately. So it is kind of it's like watching an art piece. Like it's not a story,
right? It's like something that'd be on in a gallery.
Exactly, it's like an installation. Yeah,
yeah, it feels like an installation that should be on a loop, and that's fine. But like that's what's weird about it is like my notes on it is like you either lean one way or another. Either make a movie and accept that you're not going to make it authentic. Or make it so authentic that it's just a 4-hour long art piece that you put on a loop that people put on at parties or something, right? I guess you could put this on a loop, but it's a tight loop.
Yeah,
but that's kind of my thoughts on it. And yeah, I guess I have nothing else. I think we're in agreement here, which is like it's a very impressive piece of filmmaking. It's just a failure as a storytelling device.
Yeah, and that's a shame. But,
Yeah. It's a shame because I think they could have made that version and not lost it. Because, again, after 20 minutes, you go, okay, I'm impressed. I get it. You can recreate 90s TV or 80s TV. I get it. Very impressive. Now let's have a movie,
Yeah, let's do a film.
But it's sort of that feeling of like, by the end, I'm like, I got it. I get it. You can recreate 1987 TV. Like you did a good job.
I do want to see that Mummy movie they advertised, Sarcophagus.
Oh yeah, Sarcophagus. That looked boss.
Looks fucking cool.
And I am curious about their other films because they made a later film called the Out There Halloween Mega.
Pretty recently, like last year.
It's like an alien one, and like I don't know, that one has slightly better reviews. But again, this also had. But it's the idea of like it's like a Jerry Springer-esque show about but I don't know. It also has the fake commercials. It's hard, man. And it's that I would maybe watch that on my own time, and then if I get fucking tired, I'll shut it off, right? Like I don't know. Neat idea.
Yeah.
Very talented
really neat
filmmaker.
Idea. Very, very, very clever, very creative, very talented. Wish it would have been a better movie. There and again, I don't want to say the same thing over and over again, like this movie did.
I do. I did say this again. I want to say this again. I want to shout out the talent is very good in this, and not just behind the camera, but I thought the actors and I thought the background dipshits did a great job at being little mouth breathers and shit.
Oh yeah,
I think there's a lot of great performances.
Yeah, like the genuinely funny scene when he's talking to the crowd, and he goes to Dracula, and that guy just stares at him.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's really good. Like
and he's
again,
just
really
getting more and more frustrated with each person he talks to.
Yeah, very funny scene. I liked that scene a lot. There's a lot of again a lot of talent and lots of love within this movie. So that should be stated. But yeah, I feel like we'll repeat ourselves otherwise.
Yeah,
so
let's cut it off.
Yeah, we can be done with this. Thank you, J. Allen Grimm, for pointing this to me. I'm glad I've seen it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Yeah. I didn't even know it existed.
Me either.
So it is
when you sent me this, like, we got to watch, I didn't know what this was.
Right. And so, like, if you're a horror, I would say I recommend this to horror people, completionists, I guess, who just really want to watch horror movies. And this is I don't know, weird... the nostalgia freaks, because it definitely captures the time.
If you're a fan of that dancing pumpkin meme, you'll enjoy this.
Yeah. That sums it up. So yeah, Once again, thank you to J. Allen Grimm. This was through our Patreon, patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. You go on there, you crumple up a $5 bill, throw it at us, and you get access to a bunch of exclusive podcasts. Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Fox Mulder's Maniac, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and Spiel Boys. $5. That's less than Twitter Blue. And Twitter Blue, all you get is Nazis. So, like, it's a better deal.
It's such a better deal. So few Nazis over at Gamefully Unemployed.
So few Nazis. There's a couple X-Files episodes, I think, with some Nazis in it. But
other than that, we're pretty Nazi-free over here.
Yeah, exactly. That's our motto, pretty
Nazi-free. Yeah. We also have a store. Head over to tpublic.com. No, that's not right. Head over to GamefullyUnemployed.com where we have a link to our Teespring store. That was a fucking 2-year-old pitch.
Yeah.
We have our Teespring store where you can find all kinds of cool original artwork and designs. You can get on t-shirts, mugs, stickers, posters, all sorts of things. So slap your taped off a broadcast TV in the 80s peepers onto that.
Right. Tom, are you ever afraid that you'll get like stabbed in the head and your last words will be like a plug for our Like, I'm always scared that my brain's going to I'm going to get stabbed. My brain's going to misfire and I'm just going to plug the Patreon and die. And people are like, that was his last words.
When I die and the synapses are misfiring in my brain, I am going to say things like probably podcast plugs, or I'm just going to start saying lines from like Jurassic Park.
Yes, it'll be,
I like
your grandkids will be baffled. Yeah.
And say "clever girl."
Clever girl. And they're like, and I guess that's it.
I'll get halfway through Quint's introductory speech in Jaws, and just die.
It's not bad last lines.